Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Today I want to take a look back over the past year. I am recording this in October 2025, and I decided last fall, so about this time last year, to go all in on executive leadership coaching. I'm all in. And so it's also like taking on a new job. I've learned a lot has happened. And so I thought that I would just share what I've learned and my observations, because I think it'll be useful for anyone taking on a new job, new responsibilities, bigger scope, to keep these things in mind going forward. Because I've also been working with a lot of clients now who are either a little disappointed or are having a hard time adapting to their new job, their new scope, their new reality. And so I hope this is going to give you some food for thought. So over the past year, the first thing is, maybe a little background information is that if you've been listening for a while, you know that I was in corporate for 28 years, I think. And I had an excellent reputation, worked internationally, knew a lot of people, but I had not really nurtured that environment or those contacts when I decided to leave the corporate world, because I spent more time on doing some health coaching and health and wellness coaching first. And so when I came back and decided to be all in, you just think that the world is waiting for you. And it wasn't. And it's the same thing when you start a new job. You think they're waiting for me. You're really excited. You're bringing some new skills, fresh ideas to the table. But most of the time, nobody is waiting for you, because life has to go on. The world doesn't stop because you're not there. And so my first observation is that it never, when I say it, I'm talking about your new job, or in my case in building my business, it never goes how you thought it would. There's always going to be surprises. There's always going to be something you didn't know. I've done quite a few episodes on managing messy and accepting that the environment that you're going into might not be what was promised to you, or might not be what you thought of. And in all honesty, with everything that's going on in politics and with war, and the world is crazy right now, and that affects the business environment. And so businesses adapt, things change. So between the time you made the decision and you get or start your job, things could have changed. So it just never goes how you thought it would. You always think that things are going to be perfect and beautiful, and they usually aren't. So that's my first thing. My second observation is, and I've said this a couple times, you need to get comfortable being uncomfortable. Taking on a new job, starting a business, it takes effort. It takes a lot of effort. And you can tell yourself that it's hard. I choose not to, personally. I choose to tell myself that it's exciting, and that I'm learning, and that I'm getting new skills. But be aware that you're going to have to adapt to a new environment, to a new boss, to a new team, to a new structure, to new products and solutions. Whatever it is, you are going to be very, very uncomfortable. And for me, I went from managing a big team and having all of these resources to not getting paid, to being on my own, so having to find a support system. It's just completely different. And I'm not complaining. I wouldn't change anything or any decision I ever made, but just be aware that it takes effort when you take on a new job, and don't underestimate that. And so it requires a little bit of resilience and, yeah, I would say self-awareness. My third point is when you come into a new environment, setting habits and building habits that are going to serve you in that new environment takes discipline. And setting time aside for learning is really important. And I put that in the same bucket because for me, it's part of discipline, because it is really easy to get caught up in old habits. Let me just give you an example. So when we moved to southern France, one of the reasons was that I wanted to be able to exercise and walk daily. And I also work a lot with companies in the US, so I work in the evenings. I work a lot of evenings until 8 p.m. or 9 p.m. French time. And so in the morning, I try not to start work until 10, between 10 and 11. And it's the same thing on Wednesdays. I don't coach clients. I coach Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. And I do other things for myself and for my company on Wednesday. Now, those are choices that are important to me. They're important to my physical health, my mental health, how I want to organize my time. But it takes discipline to say no and to keep those limits. Let me just also give you a couple examples. I have a client who always wants to meet on Wednesday. She can meet the other 4 days of the week, but I've told her I'm not available on Wednesday. She's amazing. I love working with her, but I don't coach on Wednesdays for reasons that are personal to me. And sometimes she comes back and asks and insists, and I have to set that boundary. And I have to respect myself, my organization, and be disciplined. I was also coaching another client who, for her, in her new job, she had to learn a lot about the industry. It wasn't something she was familiar with. And so setting time aside to learn was really important, even if it's only half an hour a day to read an industry newsletter or listen to an industry podcast. That is really important. And those things, however, it's really easy to squeeze them. So being disciplined and setting boundaries is super important. My fourth point is you need to build your credibility. Even if you come in with a good reputation, building trust and credibility with other people, either on the team, with your boss, with your peers, super important. Simply do what you say you will do. It is as simple as that. Be reactive, do what you say you will do, show up. That credibility is going to go a long way. And whether it be building a business or in a new job, just don't think that your title is going to save you or be the answer. Because I have a client right now, and I think her title is SVP, and she thought that that was going to solve a lot of problems. But it isn't. She still has to build credibility with other people in the company so that they'll rely on her and they'll trust her. And so invest in those relationships because they matter down the road. My fifth point, I think I saved the two most important points for last. It is crazy important to build your network. And I will say that again, it is a topic that I talk about a lot. Building your network is really important. Now, in my case, when I decided to go all in on executive leadership coaching, I did have some clients, but I wasn't full. And I wanted a full coaching practice, which I have today. It has taken me a year to get here. And but the first 6 to 8 months, I networked like crazy. I did coffee chats. I met with friends. I joined networking events. I did market research interviews. I did some free coaching. Anytime I would meet somebody, almost in any situation where I felt that I could learn something from them, that I was curious about them, we had a 30-minute call. And so over the past year, I have probably met with over 150 people. And that has led to me being successful. Right now, I'm not sure if I've talked about this. I don't think so. So I work with a company in the US. I do all of their, or a lot of their management training. So I am a consultant for them. I'm a consultant for a couple other companies also, either doing coaching or some kind of management work. And I also have my own coaching clients. So I am full today. And I'm full because I invested the time in meeting people, in going to events, in following up. And the one thing also is that I never expected anything in return, ever. I went into those meetings curious, wanting to learn, just open-minded about who they were and wanted to listen and learn from them. And that has totally paid off. And when you are taking on a new job, it is also something I encourage you to do. You are not going in to tell people how great you are. Go in to listen and learn and get their perspective about the market, about the clients, about what is going on, about, the changes that the company's going through, about the challenges. There's just so much that you can learn, and people love to talk and either offer advice or share their knowledge. Almost nobody has ever said no to any kind of coffee chat. And you don't know how the world is going to pay you back. And what I mean by that is all of those meetings are planting seeds. And if I look back now, the way that they help me is I was learning to ask questions. I was learning to listen. I was learning to understand what potential problems people had. I learned about the market. That was amazing. People's experience when it came to coaching, people's experience when it came to building a business. Like all of that has served me. I didn't know how. At the moment when I was having those conversations, I had no idea how that was going to serve me or help me, but it has. And the result is today my practice is full. And I hope it continues, and I'm sure it will. But building that network is crazy important, even inside a company. Let me just give you a couple examples. If you travel, if you go to a company event, go into the office, get there a day early, stay a day later, go in the office and sit with people. Or if you're going to some kind of conference, follow up ahead of time and make appointments to have coffee, to be sure that you're going to see each other during a break. Those are incredible opportunities. And I personally think that face-to-face interaction, if you can do it, I can only encourage you to do it. I just think relationships are built when you can also see the person and get a feeling for their energy. And so network, that's all I can say on point number 5. It's crazy important to network. And my last point is, over this past year, also one of my business biggest lessons or learnings is the importance of having support. And I got my support 2 different ways. The first one is, okay, so I'm alone. My business, it is just me. And I'm sitting behind my computer 90% of the time and alone. And my husband travels for work 3 to 4 days a week. So I'm alone with the cats. And I did choose that. I'm just putting that out there. I chose that. That is my life. But it was super important to me to find a support network. And so I have a couple different coaches. There's 2 or 3 of us where we get together. And for the past year, 2 of my coach friends, we got together weekly, an hour and a half. I call them my colleagues, my coworkers. And we were there to brainstorm, to coach each other, to offer advice, to give feedback, all of those things that you don't get when you're alone. And the second way that I got support is I hired a coach. And I've mentioned it before, I've spent a lot of money on coaches. This year, I spent money on business coaches. And most recently, I now have a money mindset coach because I was having a lot of what I felt was scarcity, which is not at all who I am. It was so rare for me to get into a scarcity mindset. Because keep in mind that we sold a lot of properties to be able to buy here. My income, there was a drop in my income when I started my business. And so those things generated in me a lot of scarcity. And so I worked with a money mindset coach, and she has been amazing. And I actually love working with her. And it is the same for people taking on new jobs. It can be very lonely because you want to show that you know what you're doing and that you're confident, and you don't want anybody to think you're weak. That's what my clients tell me. Karen, I don't dare ask the question. They're going to think I'm weak. So I get it, but having some kind of support system is really important. So I can only suggest working with a coach. Of course, it is life-changing. It honestly is. If there's doubt, there's 2 things I see. And so as most of you know, if you've been listening to this for a while, I work with a lot of people taking on new scopes, bigger jobs, promotions. And there's kind of 2 things that go on. So the first one is there's doubt. There's just generally doubt. Everybody doubts. And I just want to normalize that. But the second thing that I see is at very senior levels, very few people get support from management. They never have one-to-one. So I have a current client. She's been in her job now for a year, director level. She has had one-on-ones with the CEO. Okay, she reports to the CEO. And they're always very project related and very basic. So anytime she has questions though on strategy, long-term vision, or a management issue, things like that, she has no one to turn to. And so we're working together because she needs somebody to give her feedback. She needs somebody, it's a mirror. A coach acts as a mirror to what is going on. And so she has needed that. And it's been hugely helpful for her. Also, when it comes, there's some mentoring that goes on when it comes to how would you do something? Because again, people are afraid to ask. They don't want to seem weak. I get it. So a lot of people do work with a coach, and I would strongly suggest, or find an internal mentor is the other opportunity to help you work through those things. You don't have to go at it alone. Being alone is so hard. And there are so many people that have been where you have, that have had the struggles you have, that have navigated it. So find a support system is all I can say. So that's what I wanted to talk to you about today. For me, the past year has been amazing. I wouldn't change a thing. It has been a year of challenge, of growth, of constantly pushing myself outside of my comfort zone. And I hope that's also for you. If you are taking on new responsibilities or a new job, I hope that you also are pushed outside of your comfort zone and you see all of the opportunity for growth and for learning, because I think that that's what life is about. I just don't want you to be alone, and don't think that you have to be alone. So I hope you have a fantastic week. If you have other things that you have learned or observed when you've taken on a new job, I would also love to hear about it. So have a great week, everyone, and we'll talk soon. Take care.